Hi, 6th grade. It's Mrs. Conant, and welcome to another math video. We are getting started today on a new chapter, and I know we just took the test for chapter 5, but we're actually not going to move on to chapter 6. We're actually going to skip chapter 6 and go to chapter 7, because chapter 7 takes us to multiplying fractions and decimals, which I think is a good place for us to head after learning how to add and subtract fractions. So we are going to get started on chapter 7 today, multiplying fractions and decimals. So our first lesson is called multiplying a whole number and a fraction. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to multiply a whole number by a fraction. So first, let's just do a quick review of multiplication. So here's a pretty simple multiplication problem that you've seen before. 4 times 16 equals 64. So in other words, when we looked at a multiplication problem, it's another way of saying it is 16 plus 16 plus 16 plus 16 equals 64. That would be another way to say 4 times 16. Now, like we've talked about before, multiplication is a shortcut for addition. Instead of having to add 16 4 times, we can just multiply it and come up with the product. So what we're saying is that 4 times 16 equals 64 is showing us 4 sets of 16. Well, now let's take a look at it with fractions. So 5 sets of 3/4, another way that we would write that is 5 times 3/4. And so we could add 3/4 5 times, and it would look like this. And basically what we would do is we would add that numerator, which is a 3 all the way across. We would add 3 5 times, and that would give us 15. Our denominator would stay the same. So 5 times 3/4 would equal 15/4. But I hope you've already recognized that we can't leave our answer in that form because it's an improper fraction. It is not in its lowest terms, and so we need to reduce it. So we're going to reduce it to a mixed number, and that mixed number would be 3 3/4. Let's take a look at another one. 3 times 6/7. Well, we could do 6/7 plus 6/7 plus 6/7, and if we add that numerator 6 across the top, we would get 18/7, and then we would reduce that to 2 4/7. Okay, so that was what I would call the long way to do these types of equations. The short way would be to simply take that whole number and multiply it by the numerator, and then keep the denominator the same. So in this case, we see that 5 times 3 equals 15, and then we just move that 4 over as the denominator, which gives us 15/4. Okay, same thing with this example. 3 times 6 gives us 18, and then we move the 7 over as denominator. Now, in both these cases, you would need to reduce these fractions by turning them into mixed numbers. So go ahead and give this problem a try. Go ahead and pause the video and complete 2/3 times 12. Good job. Okay, so here's a little hint. If you would like, if you think it's going to be easier for you to multiply two fractions and not a fraction and a whole number, there's a little trick that you can do. You can always make a whole number a fraction by putting it over the number 1. By doing this, you are not changing the value in any way of that whole number, but it might be easier for you if you look at the equation set up in this way. So all you would do is you would multiply straight across. You would say 2 times 24 equals 24, and 3 times 1 equals 3. Now we would need to reduce this, and so just as a quick reminder, for us to reduce this fraction and turn it into a mixed number, we would just divide 3 into 24. And actually, when we divide 3 into 24, we're going to end up with another whole number, which is the number 8. Okay, another quick problem that I would like for you to pause the video and give this one a try. Good job. Okay, again, if you chose to, you could have put that whole number 6 over a 1. and then multiplied 6 times 7, and you would have had 42. And 1 times 8 gives you 8. You reduce that improper fraction to 5 2/8. And I hope you notice that we're still not finished. Okay, this is still not in its lowest terms. So we're going to reduce that 2/8 to 1/4. And so our final answer would be 5 1/4. Okay, so just as a review before we move on to the next concept, when you are multiplying a fraction by a whole number, you can simply multiply that whole number by the numerator and then move the denominator over, or if you would like, you can put the whole number over 1 and set it up this way and multiply straight across both the numerators and the denominators. So 2 times 6 is 12, 5 times 1 is 5, and that would reduce to 2 2/5. Okay, bottom one, just another quick review before we move on. Okay, you can set it up like this if you would like. 6 times 5 is 30, 8 times 1 is 8, and that would reduce to 3 6/8, which would then reduce to 3 3/4. So that was multiplying a fraction by a whole number. Now we're going to move on to our second concept for the day. So our second concept today is multiplying a fraction by a fraction. And it is actually very simple. I think you guys are going to catch on to this really quickly. Okay, so let's practice multiplying a fraction by a fraction using a word problem. So here's our word problem. Jeff and his brother painted 1/4 of the fence on Tuesday. Jeff did half of the work. How much of the entire fence did Jeff paint? So we're going to set up this equation in order to figure out our answer. We have 1/2 times 1/4, okay? We found out that Jeff did half of the work and they painted 1/4 of the fence. So we're going to multiply those two fractions together. Now, all you do when you multiply fractions, it's very simple, is you simply multiply across the numerators and then the denominators. So we're going to start by multiplying 1 times 1, which gives us 1, 2 times 4, which gives us 8, and that's it. So our answer is that Jeff painted 1/8 of the entire fence. Okay, why don't you go ahead and pause the video and do 3/5 times 2/3. Great job. Okay, what you should have done is multiplied first the numerators. So 3 times 2 gives you 6. And then the denominators, 5 times 3, which gives you 15. As always, we look and make sure that our fraction is written in its lowest form. This is not, so it should have been reduced down to 2/5. And that's it. Okay, very, very simple. All right, let's try another kind of word problem. So this word problem, we're still going to be multiplying. However, we are not given two fractions this time. We're actually going to be given a whole number and a fraction. So we're going to go back to the first part of our lesson to do this problem. So Brent bought 6 kinds of candy for a party. He bought 1/4 of a pound of each kind. How many pounds of candy did he buy? So you should have an equation set up that looks like this. 6 times 1/4. Now remember, you are always welcome to turn that whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1. So then we would simply multiply 6 times 1 and get 6, and 1 times 4, which gives us 4, which we would then turn into the mixed number of 1 2/4, which would then reduce down to 1 1/2. So he bought 1 1/2 pounds of candy. Okay, this is our last problem for this video, and so go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to do this word problem. Great job. Okay, so our word problem said, Kara practices playing the piano for 3/4 of an hour each day. How many hours does she practice in 7 days? So this is what your problem should have been set up to look like. It could also look like this. Multiply 7 times 3, which gives you 21. 1 times 4, which gives you 4. We're reducing that to 5 1/4 hours. So Kara practices 5 1/4 hours. Great job. Okay, your assignment for tonight are your video notes and also practice problems 1, 7, and 9 on page 150. Have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow.